Until he left the Joe Rogan Experience in 2013, Brian Redban was the co-host of the most popular podcast in the world. Since then, he seems to have remained in the shadow of Joe's popularity. However, over the years, Brian has been able to get himself into successful projects as a comedian, producer, and podcast host. Here are some unknown or unpopular facts about Brian Redban. Sit back and enjoy. Number 9. He is a BTS fan. BTS is a South Korean K-pop boys band with a massive global following. Billboard compared the pandemonium and fan madness on American soil to the chaos caused by the Beatles in the 1960s. With their catchy, happy songs and impressive live performances, Brian was hooked. On one episode of the Joe Rogan Experience, he introduced him to their music. Number 8. Brian worked in a computer store. Before YouTube and the internet were what they are today, Brian would go to comedy shows, film them, and upload them to his website with such names as Doug Stanhope. This caught the attention of Rogan, who, soon after, recruited him to produce and record his shows. Brian was working full-time at a computer store in Ohio. But coincidentally, at that same time, the store was closing its doors and he received a $3,000 severance package, money that helped him move to California. Number 7. He founded Death Squad. During the growing popularity of the Joe Rogan Experience, Brian started a podcast network with some of the most popular comedian guests that they've had on the show. He was behind the podcasts of Ari's Skeptic Tank, Joey Diaz's Church of What's Happening, and Your Mom's House. During this time, he filmed, edited, and co-hosted 2 to 3 shows every day. Most of these people have since departed with their projects to other networks. Nevertheless, he still managed to have fantastic shows like Kill Tony, which is extremely popular and it doesn't seem to be slowing down. Number 6. He's still friends with Joe Rogan. Redban left co-hosting with Joe in 2013 for a few reasons. In the early days, when the show was in its infancy, in silly or comedic discussions, his personality fit right in. But as the podcast progressed with a wider range of guests, bringing in more academics and intellectuals from different fields, it demanded a different tone and a more focused conversation. Adding to that, Brian's overworked with other projects, and the way it was affecting the technical aspects of the podcast led to small arguments with Joe that were escalating in intensity. Eventually, all of this made his departure inevitable. The show now gathers over 100 million listeners a month quite regularly. Joe does not regret his decision. Instead, the two of them have become good friends. He is a regular guest on his podcast as well as Joe is on Brian's projects. Number 5. He's into the metaverse. Growing up with an engineer father helped nurture the skills for his tech-oriented pursuits. He got into web design at the primordials. Before Twitch, he was doing live streams, and he was one of the first to go into podcasting. Currently, it's no different. Most nights he goes into the metaverse in the virtual Redban chat. With a digital avatar, online with a bunch of friends, they enter a virtual Disney World to ride a roller coaster or go to a strip club. He also performed in a comedy show in a virtual reality environment. Number 4. Brian did more than just podcasts. Brian was a touring comedian for a long time, performing at several comedy clubs across the US. He was once called the future of funny by Culture magazine. He also appeared in movies like The Culture High and Doug Benson's Chronic Con. And in addition to his performing side, he sold t-shirts and made a lot of money from it. Number 3. He still works for Joe. Although Brian has left the Joe Rogan Experience as a producer and co-host, he still manages to have executive producer credits on it, as he often mentions on multiple occasions during interviews. Number 2. He was behind the Mencia incident. In 2007, Brian filmed, edited, and uploaded a clip that went viral on YouTube and led to what is known as the Mencia incident. The clip showed Rogan accusing Carlos Mencia of stealing jokes from other comedians. It all happened on stage during Mencia's stand-up show. The industry faced Rogan, getting him banned from the Comedy Store and his talent agency, which also represented Carlos, dropping him. A year later, Mencia's career had already taken a hit and lost most of its relevance. The peak of the fall was when his show Mind of Mencia was canceled in 2008 after 4 seasons. Number 1. He dated porn stars. Brian over the years has been surrounded by actresses that are naughtier than usual. They were frequent guests on his podcast, especially on The Naughty Show. He also became known to have a dating history with a few of them, some quite famous. 2 of them were on the top ranks of adult actresses that perform mostly girl on girl. They were Victoria Ricci and Taylor Vixen. Quite the catch, Lucky Brian.